And we had just started recording because it counted down. So
okay, we're doing it.
So we're going to hopefully... I noticed it this time, so
so there's not 10 minutes of rap.
Accidentally going to say something that we don't want on.
Well, that's
recorded.
It can be taken out in editing.
Oh yeah, exactly. So Melanie and Laura,
hi
guys. So today we're going to talk about kind of body image and sex, and what kind of interactions that has, and. Yeah, I'm not going to define it too much because we always go off on rabbit trails. So
right.
This is kind of our prompt, and this is where we're going.
That's where we're going to go.
You were saying, when you were suggesting the topic, saying, kind of how we
can turn ourselves off.
Yes.
When we aren't comfortable with the shape of our bodies.
Yeah.
We aren't comfortable, and we're in a position sexually, and I can feel my fat roll rubbing up against the inside of my arm, or I am in a position and I'm so worried about, oh my God, what I must look like in this position. And I get so turned off in that moment when I'm no longer in the moment. And there's actually a term for this that I did not know.
It's called spectatoring. Because you get in your head and you're like kind of watching yourself from the outside almost. And that is one of the huge things that will really mess with your ability to be in the moment and just enjoy what your body is designed to do. Remember also that just because you're judging yourself, that doesn't mean your partner is.
Absolutely.
You have different
in fact,
tastes.
most of the time he's probably not.
Right.
Or she. I'm not.
Whoever it is.
Your partner is probably not even thinking about your role.
Right.
Or what jiggled. And some people like the jiggle.
Absolutely. So
my guy likes the jiggle. He likes when things jiggle, and I'm like, whoa, I don't like it when it jiggles.
Well, so when I met Dennis and we were on our first date, he said something, and I can't remember exactly what it was, and it made me pause for a second, and I'm like, you knew I was a big girl, right? Like,
right.
Before we met, you knew. That's
right.
Why there was a picture.
Right.
And he goes, yeah, that's why I swiped on you.
Oh.
And I'm like, okay, we're good then.
He wanted a sturdy ride.
I'm not playing with somebody who's gonna
try to take you to the gym
and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, guys, in fact, most men prefer something a little curvier.
Yeah.
Now, this is not about what men want.
Okay.
Right. This is about how do you turn yourself off? How do you get in your own head and get in your own way and
block your own pleasure?
Absolutely.
I mean, what's the point of being in a sexual situation with someone if you're not going to enjoy it?
Right.
Now,
if you think that is the norm, then we got a lot of work to do.
Right. Right.
That is not how it should be. And that is not how most men think about it either. So, being really honest here, like, I used to think that guys were just like, they wanted what they wanted. They wanted to make themselves happy and go away.
Right.
And no, your partner, male or female,
is invested in your pleasure.
Yes.
Yes.
They want the connection.
Right.
More than anything else.
Right.
Now, yes, for men, why can't I think of the hormone now?
Testosterone?
No. The one responsible for erections.
Progesterone. Oh.
It's pissing me off that I can't think of it because I use the word all the time.
All the time.
There is a hormone that is responsible for erections.
Okay.
And
it's not testosterone.
No.
Okay.
It's going to drive me crazy now because I know the word.
It'll pop in a
one
second.
Of those perimenopausal moments where my vocabulary is disappearing. But it is also the primary bonding hormone for men.
Oh, okay. So
for women, oxytocin.
Right, that's where I was going to go. That's our primary bonding.
And for men, I have to grab my computer
Yep.
because this is
Grab
driving me
your
crazy.
computer and Google it.
Because I can't think of the word, and I'm going to smack myself in the head when I when I see it. But,
Right.
in fact, I remember learning about this way back in massage school. And is my computer dead?
Oh no.
Give me that cable.
There it is.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
But anyway, so the connection, having the connection with the person that they love is honestly very closely related to erections. So that doesn't mean that they don't want the connection.
Right.
It's just related.
Right.
Know? So.
Well, and that would be interesting to look at, because erectile dysfunction is a big thing that affects, as we're going through perimenopause, a lot of our male partners are going through an issue with erectile dysfunction. And I know that there are instances where a man will not initiate a sexual relationship with you or sexual contact. If you're in partnership with someone, your sex life drops off because of his erectile dysfunction. He's going to remain distant because in his mind, it's not sexy time till he's got an erection.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you start playing sexy time, guess what? You might get the erection.
Right.
Because that hormone is starting to churn up because it's a connection hormone.
Well, and I think that kind of leads into the idea of responsive versus spontaneous desire.
Yes.
Women get in their heads because they think they're supposed to, just be able to turn it on like that, right?
Yeah, right.
Well,
We think we're supposed to.
Some of us are like, no, we know that doesn't work, right? But there's kind of this messaging that, you're supposed to have the same type of desire.
And if you are not, then there's something wrong with you. Right.
Most women have responsive desire. Most men have spontaneous desire. And I always think of that as, the wind blows the wrong way and they're ready to go, right?
Right. Until they reach about 50.
right.
And then it takes a little more work.
And for me, that leads into the topic of perimenopause because there is a change in men roughly around the same age.
It's jokingly referred to as menopause, but it's it's very
but
much
it's a real thing.
Hormonal change as well.
So anyway, the responsive versus spontaneous desire is a confusing issue for many because men. And I'm speaking in generalities, but men think that women are supposed to have the same type of desire, and women sometimes think they're supposed to have the same type of desire too. Right. But the thing that gets you in the mood, Esther Perel talks about it, the thing that gets you in the mood to have sex is starting to have sex.
Right. Right. And if you wait, I mean, that's the biggest thing.
Vasopressin.
Yeah.
And I couldn't even find it with the search terms I was using, but it just popped into my head. Vasopressin. That's the one I was looking for.
Okay. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But if there's a situation where you're spectatoring. Yeah. Where you find yourself observing. Mm-hmm. Are you observing because you feel the need to perform a certain way? Mm-hmm. Is there some porn flick that you saw that said you have to make these noises or move this way, or and if there's a position that he really enjoys that you really hate? Yeah. And where do you shut that off? How do you adjust that? How do you, okay, I realize I'm spectatoring. Now what?
So mindfulness exercises, honestly, is a huge thing. I mean, that's the first step, is learning how to be present. Right. I like to say being present as opposed to being in the moment, because when you're talking about it on a larger scale than just sex, people think, oh, in the moment means do whatever feels good at that moment. Right. And that's not what that means. No, being present. But being present. Yeah. So learn, and those of us with ADHD,
we struggle with that because there's always, There's always
something to look at,
squirrel,
think about,
ball,
always
right.
something on your mind, right?
Right. Oh shit, did
But,
I put the clothes in the dryer?
right?
I don't know that I put the clothes in the dryer.
Exactly. So,
I'm gonna have to wash them again.
But there is something that you can look into called sensate focus.
Okay.
In sex therapy, and it is learning to feel what feels good, recognize what feels good, recognize what doesn't feel good, and so you learn it for yourself first, and then communicate that to your partner.
Right.
And being able to communicate
is huge.
So it really is. So as an example, so I work very specifically in sex therapy with like the kink community. And so I have known doms who will say things like, recite the Gettysburg Address in the middle of stuff, just to get your head off of
what's happening,
whatever else you're thinking about, right?
Okay.
Something to kind of get you off of that and distract you from that. So various things like that. But if you guys will, recite baseball stats, cliche, but it works to keep them present, and keep them from like
finishing early and yeah.
So mental tricks.
I find it very interesting that seems to be a commonly known thing about guys. I mean, it's joked about in movies. Right. It's nuns and puppies and all this stuff that they're trying.
Grandma naked.
Yeah,
whatever,
grandma naked. Whatever it is they need to do to keep from finishing too early. But women are just as capable of achieving a level of pleasure and moving away from that self-judgment and spectatorship, that it's a practice. It's an exercise.
Right.
It's just like anything else that you have to practice.
Right.
It's practicing staying in the moment so that eventually it becomes second nature.
Right.
That eventually you'll get to the point where you're like, oh my God, I got all the way through that and I didn't.
Right.
I
wasn't thinking about all the other things.
But what is the difference between spectatoring and dissociating?
Dissociating. Ooh, okay.
Because
but I would.
That happens, I think, a lot for women too.
No, that is very true. There is a huge dissociation between body and mind. Mm-hmm. So, okay, I would say spectatoring is when you're thinking about how you look in the moment.
Okay.
How am I performing in the moment?
Okay. So it's more of a judgment-based versus a checking out.
Right.
So basically, you're more checked in.
Yes.
You're
like
hyper
checked in on the wrong things.
Right. You're focused in on what's going on in the moment and how you look and the judgments and everything around that. Whereas dissociating, you're just checking out.
Right.
Okay.
Dissociation is like you said, it's checking out, but it's often based in discomfort.
And I personally can speak to that because there are aspects of my sexual relationship with my partner that I will find myself checking out if we're in a position that I don't care for. Mm-hmm. Or if and it doesn't happen like it used to happen because we've communicated a lot around it or whatever. But there will be certain things that may not be what an abuser did, but will be linked in some way in my mind. Right. And then all of a sudden, my mind has switched from I am in a safe, loving, caring relationship to now I'm an object for someone else to use.
That's where you start to feel like you're not involved and you're not an equal participant.
Right.
And that's where, again, communication is so important. If you can't talk about sex, you have no business having sex.
Right. And if you can't get real with your hang-ups, if you can't understand that this works for you because of this particular kink, or this doesn't work for you because it triggers something uncomfortable, that's what you need to be exploring by yourself rather than trying to drag your partner through it. I went through a really long period in my life where I was truly convinced that my worth was based on my ability to inspire an erection. And if I were in a position with a partner where an erection appeared, it was my responsibility to take care of that erection.
Yeah.
It was a twisted message that got passed along that you turned me on, do something about it.
Right. That's...
Yeah. And I think that a lot of women carry that. And I think that a lot of women who are now aging into their later years are struggling with partners with ED.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
I took it very, very personally. It had to be because I'm getting thicker in the middle. It had to be because I'm getting a turkey neck. It had to be because things are jiggling too much, even though he likes the jiggle, you know?
Right.
It had to be all about me. And I had this blow up conversation with my partner about it. And he looked at me in all earnestness, and I love him for saying this to me. And it was probably one of the hardest things he's ever said to me. He goes, I want to grab you and just pound the hell out of you. But I can't, and it makes me so angry. It upsets me. And I never once thought about it from his point of view.
See,
I never once thought about it. And once he clued me in on the fact that he's really upset that this isn't happening for him, I was able to kind of make it less about me.
Right.
You know? It's like, oh, well, he still desires me.
So
he
it's
still
important
wants
to
me.
remember that there's 100 different reasons that your partner might not want to or be able to have sex.
Right.
And 99 of them have nothing
to do with you. Yeah. And
as much as you're feeling something about the situation, trust that your partner has just as many feelings, even though they're probably different feelings.
And all things being equal, women are probably going to be more willing to talk about it than a guy is. There's a lot of shame around erectile dysfunction. There's a lot of you're less than a man with erectile dysfunction. But that's not the only part of a satisfying sexual relationship.
Right.
But I know of a particular individual who will not initiate cuddling, kissing, holding, any of those things with his partner because he won't be able to perform. Yeah. And
there's a lot of fears around that.
There's a lot of fears around that.
When you're having thoughts and feelings and fears and spectatoring and all of this, recognize that he has a lot of this stuff too. Right. And this is why it's important to be able to talk to your partner. Sex is messy. Sex is weird. And there's weird faces and sounds. And it's nothing like what it looks like in porn. I actually had a school one time where I went to I work closely with one of the parents at this school who recommended me for a PTA panel. Nice. Discussing sex education with their teenagers. Okay. And one of the questions that I received is, what role should pornography play in educating your children? And the school counselor looked at me. She goes, I'm going to let you field that one. Right. What and my response is that porn is not realistic. Right. And I mean, yeah, it's fun, but it's not realistic at all. Right. So when you use it as your basis, right,
you're going to have a skewed bias.
You have a skewed perception of what it's supposed to look like, right?
Yep. And that will make you feel more self-conscious.
Right. You're going to make weird noises. You're going to, make weird faces. You might burp in his mouth. I didn't ever
You didn't ever do that.
Never.
Yeah. I actually had a partner make fun of my faces and my noises.
No.
And I carried that with me for years. It was actually my first husband. And it wasn't until my current husband sat my ass in front of a mirror to watch myself.
Mm-hmm.
Because he loved my faces and my noises and all of that. I sobbed.
Yeah.
I broke down over this because it really did damage me emotionally. It made me even less willing to be in my body, in the present, because, oh God, if I actually, if I really get into this, I'm going to make those weird faces and those weird noises, and it's going to turn this guy off. It turned the other one off, So
that kind of holding it in and repressing yourself makes it difficult to enjoy yourself, even by yourself, because that puts you in the spectatoring place.
Right.
It's, if someone complains or makes fun of the way that you conduct yourself, if you're not like already hitched, right? Like already tied to that person, move on, because there are plenty of people who will enjoy
your process.
I like the way you put that, because I'm sitting here and I'm like,
your
trying not to get too personal or tell stories on people in my life.
Right.
But I might know someone who is, and it's not me, who is very loud and might look a little like he's being electrocuted.
Right.
But I love it.
Yeah.
Because I know he's enjoying himself.
Exactly.
When I get loud, he loves it. Yeah. He knows I'm enjoying
myself. There is a certain level of, for lack of a better word, a power trip.
You're right.
When you know that you have brought your partner to that level. Yeah. And what we as women need to understand is our partners feel the same way. Yeah. Our partners want to experience that as well. I think, and by holding back, we're actually robbing them of that. We're actually reducing their additional pleasure.
Well, it's also like, it's like don't lie about orgasm.
Absolutely.
Don't fake it. Yeah. Let him know if he's not doing a good job, right?
Like, because he's not going to get any better all by himself.
Right.
He's going to keep thinking, oh, that worked. And meanwhile, a year and a half later, you're like, oh my God, he's still doing this and this still isn't working.
Right. Yeah. And the other thing to remember, women, your bodies will change from day to day. What you like, what you don't like, the pressure, the speed, the positions, angles, all of it. Things change big time within your body, outside your body, the hormones, all of it. And so my husband says, he says, there's about, at first he started like, there's probably about 5 different ways your body responds. And then he goes, you know what? No, 20 at least, Right. And
it really means that you need to communicate. Yes. So that he knows what to tune into. Yeah. Because if you're not communicating, there's, I'm trying to decide how personal I want to get with this.
I know, but, I'm kind of like, I feel like I may have crossed the line myself.
Yeah, no. For me, there is, my body may begin to respond before my mind is engaged. Mm-hmm. And if that happens and he does certain things, it's a turnoff. Right. However, if my mind's engaged at the same time my body's engaged and he does certain things, I'm there.
Biggest sex organ right up here between your ears.
I have told people before, this is my biggest erogenous zone. If you can't turn me on between my ears, you're not going to turn me on anywhere else.
Playfulness and foreplay should start as soon as this encounter ends. It should start right away.
For the next one, yeah.
For the next one. Even if you don't plan on it for a couple of weeks, right? Like, we have moments where we are separated for a couple of weeks based on work schedules, and he's out of town and various different things. And, we are flirty through text.
That's
and,
cute. We were at a girls' game night the other night, and he's sending her flirty little sexy texts. And I'm like, good job.
There was one, and if you go to my TikTok and look, there is one where I was filming a video for TikTok, and I pause and I look at a different part of the screen, and I turned bright red.
Because
he
sent you
sent me something
sexy and
so incredibly inappropriate and hilarious and sexy all at once.
Oh, I love it.
But keeping that energy alive and recognizing that kind of a little bit what you said a little while ago about afraid to cuddle, afraid to do this.
Right.
Now,
right.
women have a tendency to be afraid to engage in flirty behavior or touching for the same reason.
Right. Because it means I don't feel like having sex right now, but I still want to have that flirty connection with you.
And so everybody needs to understand
mm-hmm.
the touching, the flirting doesn't mean it has to lead to physical sex.
Right.
Or even penis and vagina sex.
Right.
Because there's so many other aspects to a healthy connection relationship. So, I feel like we've exhausted this one.
I think
for the moment.
For the moment, I'm sure it'll come back up. We'll circle back around to this topic at some point.
All right, we will talk to you again. Soon.
Feel free to comment. Let us know what you think. Give us feedback. Let us know what you'd like to hear more of, less of. We're good for that.
All right.
Bye, guys.
See ya.